Have you ever walked into a room and immediately felt the weight of everyone's unspoken emotions? Not just sensing the mood, but actually feeling the desperation behind forced smiles, the loneliness masked by loud laughter, the fear disguised as confidence. Do you find yourself exhausted after social gatherings? Not because you talked too much, but because you absorbed too much, like you're carrying invisible weights that don't belong to you. If you're nodding right now, if this resonates in your bones, then you might be carrying something both precious and dangerous. Something that makes you feel like an alien in your own world, yet gives you a superpower most people will never possess. The question is, are you ready to understand what this really means? What you're experiencing has a name. It's called hyperperception. The ability to see beneath the surface of human behavior in ways that most people simply cannot. While others navigate the world accepting things at face value, you're constantly processing layers of reality that remain invisible to the majority. This isn't about being judgmental or thinking you're better than others. It's about recognizing that your brain is wired differently. You pick up micro-expressions that reveal true emotions. You sense the energy behind words. You feel the disconnect between what people say and what they actually mean. In today's world, this matters more than ever. We're living in an age of curated personas and surface-level connections. Social media has turned authenticity into performance art. People have become experts at hiding their true selves, but you see right through it all. The problem is, this gift comes with a price. You probably feel isolated, misunderstood, maybe even broken. You might think there's something wrong with you because small talk feels like torture, and shallow friendships leave you emptier than being alone. You've likely been told you're too sensitive, too intense, or that you overthink everything. But what if I told you that throughout history, the people who changed the world were exactly like you, the ones who couldn't accept surface-level reality, who saw what others missed, who felt too deeply to ignore the truth. Your difference isn't a defect, it's your greatest strength. And once you understand how to harness it, everything changes. The weight of seeing everything. Let me paint a picture for you. You're at a family dinner, and everyone is laughing at your uncle's jokes. But while everyone is enjoying the moment, you're watching your cousin's forced smile, noticing how your aunt's laughter doesn't reach your eyes, feeling the tension between your parents that nobody else seems to detect. This is your reality. You don't just observe life, you absorb it at a frequency that would overwhelm most people. Think of it like having emotional X-ray vision. While others see the cast on someone's broken arm, you see the invisible fractures in their soul. Here's what's really happening in your brain. Most people have natural filters that screen out subtle emotional information. It's a survival mechanism that prevents sensory overload. But your filters are either broken or non-existent. You're receiving the full, unfiltered broadcast of human emotion around you. This explains why a simple trip to the grocery store can leave you drained. You're not just buying milk and bread, you're unconsciously processing the cashier's marital problems, the anxiety of the mother with screaming kids, the loneliness of the elderly man counting exact change. The question isn't whether this is real. Science is catching up to what you've always known. Mirror neurons, emotional contagion, the measurable impact of one person's energy field on another. Researchers are finally validating what feels like supernatural sensitivity. The allergy to fake. But here's where it gets really interesting. Your hyperperception has created something else, an almost physical inability to tolerate inauthenticity. Small talk doesn't just bore you, it actually causes you distress. When someone asks, "How's the weather?" when their energy is screaming about their divorce, your system goes into conflict.
You're simultaneously receiving two different messages, and the contradiction creates internal chaos. This is why you've probably been labeled as difficult or antisocial. You're not trying to be rude when you can't engage in meaningless chatter. Your brain is literally rejecting the incongruity between surface and depth. Think about your last networking event or office party. While everyone else seemed to glide through conversations about weekend plans and TV shows, you felt like you were suffocating. That's not social anxiety, that's your authentic self refusing to participate in collective pretense. You crave conversations that bypass the superficial and dive straight into the meaningful. You want to talk about dreams, fears, the meaning of existence, what keeps people awake at 3 a.m. Not because you're pretentious, but because surface-level interaction literally feels like eating cardboard when you're starving for real nutrition. The emotional sponge phenomenon. Now let's talk about something that might sound impossible, but you'll recognize instantly. You don't just see through people's masks, you absorb what's behind them. Remember that time you felt inexplicably sad after spending time with your seemingly happy friend? Or when you walked into a room and suddenly felt angry for no reason? That wasn't your imagination. You were picking up on emotional residue, unexpressed feelings, the psychic debris that people leave behind. This explains why you need so much alone time. It's not because you don't like people, it's because you need space to sort through what's yours and what's not. Solitude becomes your sanctuary, the place where you can finally hear your own thoughts above the emotional noise you've collected throughout the day. But here's the dangerous part. This absorption can become addictive. When you're drowning in other people's emotions, you don't have to face your own. When you're constantly solving everyone else's problems, you can avoid confronting your own inner work. This brings us to perhaps the most exhausting aspect of hyperperception, the constant fragmentation of yourself. You've learned to create different versions of yourself for different situations because your true intensity is too much for most people to handle. There's work you, family you, social you, all carefully calibrated performances designed to make others comfortable. But every mask you wear is a small betrayal of your authentic self. Every time you dial down your intensity, you abandon your true nature. This creates what I call authenticity exhaustion. Your body keeps the score of every moment you pretend to be someone you're not. That chronic fatigue that no amount of sleep fixes, that's your soul exhausted from constant performance. You might experience unexplained anxiety. That's your authentic self screaming to be released. Depression that descends like fog, that's the grief of living as a stranger to yourself. The medical community might label these as disorders, but they're actually symptoms of something much deeper: spiritual suffocation. You're not mentally ill, you're authentically deprived. The recognition factor. But here's where things get almost mystical. Despite all this isolation and fragmentation, something extraordinary happens. You recognize your own kind instantly. It's not logical or explainable. You meet someone, could be anywhere, anytime, and within seconds there's this recognition. Not of their face or their story, but of their frequency. It's like your soul antenna picks up their signal and suddenly you know, there you are. I've been looking for you. These connections are rare. Maybe you've had one or two in your lifetime. Maybe you're still searching. But when they happen, time stops. Masks drop without effort. You find yourself sharing things you've never told anyone, and they're nodding like they've been waiting their whole life to hear exactly those words. This validates everything you've always felt but could never prove. You're not alone, you're not crazy, you're not too much. You're just rare. And rare recognizes rare. But here's the shadow side. Once you've tasted true recognition, everything else feels like starvation. Once you've been genuinely seen, invisibility becomes agony. Your frequency won't settle for static anymore.
So here we are. You've spent your whole life thinking you were broken, when in reality, you were just operating on a different frequency. Your hyperperception isn't a curse. It's your superpower in disguise. The exhaustion, the isolation, the feeling like you don't belong, that's not because you're defective. It's because you're rare. And rare things don't fit into ordinary spaces. But now you have a choice. You can keep fragmenting yourself, trying to squeeze into a world that wasn't built for your level of depth. Or you can start honoring what makes you different. You can stop apologizing for your intensity and start owning it as your gift. The world doesn't need another surface-level person. It needs you, exactly as you are. If this resonated with you, don't keep it to yourself. Hit that like button to let me know you're part of this rare tribe. Drop a comment below. Just say, "I see you," and watch how many others respond. You're not as alone as you think. Subscribe and ring that notification bell because we're going deeper into these hidden aspects of human psychology every week. And here's the most important part. Share this video with that one person in your life who you know feels like an outsider. They need to hear this message. Your authenticity isn't just personal liberation, it's medicine for a world that's forgotten how to be real.